is engineering for you? That's a hard question, and that's why you're looking this up on YouTube. Sometimes you'll hear people say, if you have to ask, then it's not for you. And that kind of goes along this follow your passion trope, which, begs the question, how do you know what your passion is? I guess maybe 0.1% of the population actually knows from a young age that they're going to be a concert pianist or the next Steve Jobs. But most of us aren't like that. So that's not very helpful in my opinion. Or you might have someone ask, when you were young, did you play Legos growing up? Did you build things with blocks? Did you take things apart and try and rebuild them or see what's inside? And sure, maybe that's some indication that a child has what it takes in the future to be an engineer, but we can't rely on how we are as a 5-year-old to determine what major we're going to have when we go to college, when we're 18 or 19, or what our career is going to be for 40 years as an adult. What if you built Legos as a kid, but you sucked at it? Like, are we relying on your parents' ability to assess your aptitude in building as to whether or not you should be an engineer? So I see those approaches followed a lot to answer this question. And again, I don't think it's very helpful. So how can we build a framework to analyze or find an answer to this question? So I think the first part of this framework, in my opinion, would be looking at, once you get into your teenage years and you're starting to look at potential careers or paths, over a significant amount of time, so let's say a number of years, have you expressed an interest in science and or problem solving? The main role of an engineer is to solve problems, and we solve those problems with an understanding, or at least a pretty solid understanding of one of the scientific disciplines. So whether that be physics or chemistry or biology. It's really difficult to pursue those if you don't have an expressed interest in them. The second thing we might want to look at is, do you as a teenager or an adult feel compelled to fix things or to learn how things work? I mentioned taking things apart as a child, but as a teenager, have you ever looked at something and wondered what the internal mechanisms are, how it operates, what physical principles describe the behavior of this object or allow it to work or exist in the first place? Have you ever asked the question, why is somebody spending so much time on this fundamental research? Why don't they just use the research and build something useful or build something profitable, make a physical object? I think that's a good indication, for at least a couple fields of engineering, that might be the right path for you to take. Keeping in mind, there's multiple fields of engineering, right? So there's mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, chemical engineering, material science and engineering, which is my background, environmental engineering, computer science and engineering. So engineers, again, are problem solvers. So we run the gamut of disciplines. We have to solve problems regardless of what the problem is. So something to consider. Framework number 3, this is a difficult one. And I get some pushback when I've said this to people in the past. But you have to be relatively intelligent in at least one of the fields of science. So what does that mean? So maybe in high school you took a physics class, a chemistry class, or a biology class, and one of those was A, really interesting to you, and B, you were pretty successful in that class. It came a little bit easier to you than other classes or subjects did. Now, why is that an important thing to look at? Number one, the classes in engineering are difficult. In your first 2 years, you're going to have to take physics classes, math classes, and some chemistry classes almost every quarter or semester, depending on what college or university you go to. So you have to get through those, and then you start your engineering classes, which build upon those fundamental sciences. And then you learn how to take that information and design something, or design an object or design a process, and then implement that design, implement that process, and then iterate. And you have to finish a complete a project by a deadline under a specific budget. And so, long story short, it's really difficult to get through the engineering discipline. When I was in school, there was about a 50 to 60% attrition rate, meaning roughly half of the students that I started with didn't finish in engineering. And that's okay. I think when somebody tells a student that anyone can become an engineer, as long as you work hard at it, I've seen time and time again where that's false. I've had students who have taken a class over and over, taken the same class 3 times, and failed every time. Now, does that mean that they're not intelligent? No, it means that they don't have the aptitude for that particular subject or that particular discipline of engineering. But maybe they're a good writer, or maybe they're really good at psychology, or I've had students who think engineering is building stuff all day, and that's not the case. Most of an engineer's day is not actually physically building something for the most part. I've had students say that they really like fixing cars and that's what they want to do. That's not the field of engineering. That's being a mechanic, and that's totally okay. I've seen plenty of mechanics that make just as much money as engineers. So that being said, make sure that you have the aptitude for the discipline, and make sure you understand kind of what the daily life of an engineer looks like, which is something I'll go into in a future video. And the fourth, and I think the most important point of this framework, is you can only answer such a broad question of, is engineering for me, through experience. And I know you might be thinking, well, how do I gain this experience? I'm 18 years old, I'm 17 years old, applying for college, trying to decide what discipline I'm going to go into. How do I get that experience? It's investigating all of the different subjects that you learned about in school and trying to apply them. So doing some research and then applying your knowledge that you gained from that research. So have you tried writing a fiction short story or a novel? So have you applied what you learned in English class or creative writing? Have you read up on Freud or Jung or Skinner, psychologists who built the field of psychology, or read The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt, and actually took that knowledge and applied it in your life? So dissecting your relationships with your friends and family, understanding how the way that you speak or the way that you behave affects others, taking notes on that. If that's something you're into, maybe psychology is the right major for you to pick in college. Have you practiced debate? Have you done research and argued, and maybe argued for a side that you didn't actually believe in? And were you successful at that? So if so, maybe law or being a lawyer or attorney is the path for you. Have you learned a concept in physics, taken that concept and applied it to designing an object or machine or a process to solve a real life problem? If so, and you enjoyed that process and you were successful at it, then maybe engineering is the path that you should go down. But to jump into a university straight into engineering without at least having considered all of those different paths is a crapshoot, right? It might work, it might not. So that's kind of my 4-point framework. Try and gain that experience. Try and talk to those who have gone down this path before. Get their inputs. Don't just rely on what your parents tell you or your friends tell you. Learn from experience. Learn from others who have gone through that experience or gone down that path. And there's no easy answers in life most of the time. It requires work. It requires effort. And you'll learn that you gain, part of your fulfillment in life is gained through doing work, enjoying the process of achieving something bigger than yourself. So don't sit around waiting for easy answers. Be an explorer. And if engineering isn't for you, that's okay. Don't be afraid to just pick a path and go after it. And if it isn't for you, then fork off into another path. Don't feel like you're locked in to something because you were told that it is prestigious or it pays a lot of money or your family would be happy if you did it. Do it for yourself, because if you don't, you're going to be really unhappy in the future. So hopefully that helped.